Everyone knows the story of Noah's Ark. God sent a flood to destroy the corrupted world. Noah built an ark, and only those inside survived. But there is a disturbing detail most people have never heard. Ancient Jewish writings claim that when the ark's door finally closed and the flood began, two terrifying beings were still outside. They were not animals. They were not human. One was a fallen angel who had corrupted the earth so deeply that heaven ordered him to be chained and buried beneath the ground before the floodwaters came. The other was something even stranger, a giant, a survivor from a race the flood was meant to erase forever. And according to ancient tradition, this giant somehow lived through the flood itself, which raises a question almost no one asks. If the flood was meant to cleanse the earth, why were these two beings not destroyed? Why were they left outside the ark? And how did one of them appear again centuries later in the Bible as one of the last giants on earth? Tonight we uncover the forgotten story hidden behind the flood, the story of the two beings God left outside Noah's ark. And once you hear it, the story of Noah may never feel the same again. Before the waters covered the earth, there was a single night when everything stood on the edge of judgment, a quiet night, a heavy night. And somewhere on the earth, a massive wooden structure towered against the horizon. The ark. For years, decades even, people had watched Noah build it. Day after day under the burning sun, he worked with relentless focus. Hammer striking wood, massive beams being lifted into place, layers of pitch sealing every crack. People passed by and laughed. Some mocked him openly. "Old man, where do you think you're sailing that thing?" they would shout. There was no ocean nearby, no great river large enough to carry a vessel of that size, just dry land stretching for miles in every direction. To them, the ark looked like the work of a madman, but Noah was not building it for them. He was building it because of something God had told him many years earlier, something so terrifying that it would have shaken any man to his core. God had looked upon the earth, and what he saw grieved him deeply. Genesis tells us something chilling about that time. The earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with violence. Violence had spread everywhere. It lived in the hearts of people, in their cities, in their ambitions. Humanity had begun destroying itself. And yet, the corruption of the earth did not come from humans alone. Ancient writings and traditions suggest that something far darker had entered the world long before the flood ever came. But most people alive in Noah's time refused to believe any of it. Life continued as normal. Markets were full. Families celebrated. People married and built homes and dreamed about their future. No one imagined their world was about to disappear, except Noah, because Noah had heard the voice of God, and that voice had told him something that must have seemed impossible to accept. A flood was coming, not just rain, not just a storm, but a catastrophe so massive that it would wipe out every living thing on earth, except those inside the ark. So Noah built, not quickly, but faithfully, year after year. Every plank he placed was an act of obedience. Every beam he raised was an act of faith. Can you imagine what that must have felt like? To spend decades building something for a disaster that no one else believed would happen? To be laughed at every day, while knowing that one day those same voices might be screaming for help? But Noah kept building, because deep inside he trusted that God was telling the truth. Then one day, something strange began to happen. Animals started appearing. Not just a few, hundreds, thousands, from every direction across the earth. Birds darkened the sky as they flew toward the ark. Elephants lumbered across distant plains. Lions padded silently through the dust. Pairs of creatures began gathering around Noah's massive vessel as if guided by an invisible hand. Noah didn't need to chase them. He didn't need to capture them. They simply came, two by two, just as God had said they would. Eventually the day came when everything was ready. The ark stood complete. The animals had entered, and Noah gathered his family, his wife, his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives. 8 people in total. 8 souls chosen to survive the end of the world. One by one, they stepped inside the ark. Behind them, the enormous door stood open, like the final invitation to a dying world. The Bible tells us something fascinating about this moment. Noah did not close the ark himself. God did. Genesis 7:16 says, "Then the Lord shut him in." Imagine the sound of that door closing, the deep groan of wood against wood, the final echo of safety sealing itself from the outside world. Once that door closed, there would be no more chances. But here is where the story becomes mysterious. Because according to ancient traditions and writings preserved by Jewish scholars, the moment the ark closed, 2 beings were still outside. 2 ancient beings who would never enter the ark. One of them had already been condemned by heaven itself, a fallen angel whose actions had corrupted humanity long before the flood ever came. The other was a giant, a survivor from a race that the flood was meant to erase forever. Why were they not inside the ark? Why did God leave them outside? And perhaps the most disturbing question of all, if the flood destroyed the entire world, how did one of those beings somehow survive? Because centuries after the flood, the Bible mentions a giant king whose name would strike fear into entire nations. A giant who was said to be one of the last of his kind. His name was Og, and according to ancient Jewish tradition, his story began the night the ark's door closed. But before the waters ever began to rise, another event had already taken place. An event that involved one of heaven's most powerful angels, the archangel Raphael. Because somewhere far from Noah's ark, Raphael had been given a terrifying mission. A mission to capture a fallen angel named Azazel. And what Raphael did to him would ensure that this ancient rebel would never escape the judgment that was coming. But the way Raphael imprisoned him was far more horrifying than death, and it happened just before the flood began. Long before Noah ever lifted the first beam of the ark, something else had already gone terribly wrong on the earth. To understand why the flood had to happen, we have to go back to a moment the Bible only hints at. A moment when beings from heaven crossed a boundary they were never meant to cross. Genesis gives us only a few mysterious lines, but those lines raise enormous questions. Genesis 6:1-2 says, "When human beings began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves, whomever they chose." For centuries, scholars have asked the same question. Who were these sons of God? Why does the Bible suddenly mention them right before the flood? And how did their actions lead to the appearance of giants on the earth? Ancient Jewish tradition offers a much darker explanation. According to the book of Enoch, these sons of God were not human rulers or kings. They were angels, a group of heavenly beings assigned to watch over the earth. They were known as the Watchers. At first, their role may have been simple: to observe humanity, to guide, to protect. But over time, something dangerous happened. They began to envy the human world. They watched humanity experience things they themselves could not fully share: love, family, physical life. And slowly, fascination turned into temptation. A group of these watchers made a decision that would change the fate of the world forever. Led by a powerful angel named Semjaza, they descended from heaven to earth, not to observe, but to live among humans. And once they crossed that line, there was no going back. They took human women as wives. And from those unions came children unlike anything the world had ever seen. The Nephilim, giants, massive beings of incredible strength. Ancient texts describe them as towering figures who dominated the earth. At first, they may have seemed like heroes, powerful protectors, but power without restraint quickly became something else: violence, tyranny, chaos. The giants began consuming everything around them. Crops disappeared, animals vanished, and eventually, the violence turned against humanity itself. But the corruption didn't stop there, because the fallen angels began teaching humanity secrets they were never meant to possess, forbidden knowledge. And one fallen angel became especially infamous for the things he taught. His name was Azazel. According to ancient writings, Azazel revealed knowledge that dramatically changed human civilization. He taught people how to forge weapons, swords, spears, shields, armor. Before Azazel's teachings, humanity fought with simple tools and primitive weapons. But suddenly, war became something far more deadly. Azazel also revealed secrets of metalworking, of crafting ornaments, of shaping materials in ways humans had never known before. He even taught methods of deception and manipulation. Ancient texts say he introduced the use of cosmetics and adornments meant to create vanity and seduction. These things might seem harmless today, but in the ancient world they symbolized something deeper. Humanity had begun focusing more on appearance, power, dominance, and control. The world was changing rapidly. Violence increased. Corruption spread through cities and tribes. Wars began to erupt across the earth. And as the giants continued growing stronger, humanity began to lose control of its own world. Imagine living in that time. Imagine seeing beings far larger than humans walking across the land. Imagine hearing stories of fallen angels teaching kings the secrets of war. The earth must have felt completely different from the world we know today. And according to ancient tradition, heaven was watching all of it. The archangels looked down and saw what was happening to the earth. They saw humanity spiraling into chaos. They saw the giants devouring everything around them. They saw the forbidden knowledge spreading like wildfire. And they brought their concern before God. The book of Enoch describes this moment dramatically. 4 archangels stepped forward: Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel. They reported what the fallen angels had done. They described the violence spreading across the earth. They spoke of Azazel and the destruction his teachings had unleashed upon humanity. And God listened. Then he made a decision. Judgment was coming, not just for humanity, but for the fallen angels who had corrupted the world. The giants would be destroyed. The earth would be cleansed. And the angel responsible for spreading the most dangerous knowledge, Azazel, would face a punishment unlike anything he had ever imagined. God gave a direct command to one of heaven's most powerful angels, the archangel Raphael. Raphael's mission was simple: find Azazel, capture him, and imprison him until the final judgment. But the way Raphael would carry out that mission would become one of the most chilling moments in ancient tradition. Because Azazel would not simply be killed. He would be buried alive beneath the earth itself. And the place where Raphael imprisoned him would become a symbol of divine judgment, a dark desert pit called Dudael. While Noah was still building the ark, Raphael descended to carry out God's command. And what happened when Raphael confronted Azazel was a moment that would forever change the fate of the fallen angels. But that confrontation was only the beginning, because while Azazel was being chained beneath the earth, another being connected to the giants was still walking the world, a being whose story would become even more mysterious after the flood began, a giant who would somehow survive when the rest of his kind perished. His name was Og. The desert was silent, save for the whispers of wind through the cracked earth. Somewhere far from Noah's Ark, a dark presence moved across the barren land. It was Azazel, a fallen angel whose glory had long since been replaced by pride and corruption. His wings, once radiant, were now tattered and scorched. His eyes glowed with defiance, and every movement radiated a raw, terrifying power that seemed capable of bending the world around him. The violence that now filled the world bore his signature, Entire generations had grown up under the shadow of his corruption. And yet, despite all this, the flood was approaching. God had decreed the cleansing of the earth. Life as humanity knew it was about to be erased. But Azazel would not be swept away by the waters. He had already been marked, already been judged. Above him a shadow descended, vast and silent. It was Raphael, one of heaven's mightiest archangels, sent with a mission that would decide the fate of the fallen. His wings spread wide, gleaming with a power that made the desert seem smaller in its presence. Azazel turned, sensing the divine force closing in. "Do you think you can chain me?" he shouted, his voice shaking the air like a storm. "Do you think even God himself can stop me?" Raphael did not speak. He only raised his hand. From it erupted chains of pure light, not ordinary metal, but forged in the authority of heaven itself. They wrapped around Azazel's arms and legs, glowing, holding him in a grip that no mortal or angel could break. Azazel thrashed, beating the ground with fists and wings, sending sand and stone flying. His roars echoed across the desert, shaking the earth itself. Yet Raphael remained unshaken, unwavering. With a silent command of power, he lifted Azazel into the air and hurled him into a pit carved deep into the earth, a pit called Dudael. The walls of the pit were jagged, rough, and cruelly uneven, each stone pressing against him like a reminder of his crimes. Raphael's chains dug into his arms and legs, binding him tight. Then, one by one, enormous stones were dropped over him, sealing him beneath the desert floor. He screamed, a sound of rage, frustration, and despair. But it mattered nothing. The chains, the stones, the pit itself were a prison crafted by divine authority, impervious to the rising flood, impervious to the corruption he had unleashed. Even as the waters began to swell across the world, Noah's ark floating steadily in the distance, Azazel remained trapped outside the ark, but utterly powerless. He could not influence the animals inside, nor the humans who would repopulate the world. His punishment was complete. Heaven had acted, and the flood was now free to wash over the earth without interference from one of its greatest corruptors. While Azazel struggled beneath the stones, the other being, the giant Og, roamed free. Unlike Azazel, Og had not been chained. He moved across the land, untethered, facing the flood in his own way, his massive frame casting shadows across the rising waters. One being outside the ark was bound and waiting, the other was alive, untamed, and about to survive a cataclysm no ordinary creature could withstand. This contrast set the stage for a story few had ever heard. One being punished beyond reach of the flood, one being free to endure it. And it was in this moment, as the first rains began to fall, that the real mystery of the two beings outside Noah's ark began to unfold. The rain began quietly at first, a few drops that fell like whispers across the land. But soon it became relentless, pounding the earth with a fury that shook mountains and cracked the ground. Rivers swelled, valleys filled, the seas rose, devouring plains and forests alike. The world Noah knew was disappearing beneath the waters. And yet, Og moved through it all. He was massive, one of the last of the Nephilim, a giant born from the union of a fallen angel and a human woman. His body towered over trees. His limbs were like carved stone, muscles rippling beneath his skin. Every step he took sent tremors into the earth. His eyes, glowing faintly with a strange, ancient light, scanned the rising waters with a mixture of cunning and raw instinct. Unlike Azazel, Og was not restrained. He was free, unchained, untouched by divine punishment. The waters rose faster than any storm the earth had ever known. Trees uprooted, animals screamed. The cries of humans echoed in the distance as the flood swept across the land. Og waded into rivers that had become torrents, letting the current swirl around his ankles. He was powerful beyond imagination, But even he felt the weight of the deluge pressing against him. He had survived before. Giants had walked the earth in his time, but most had fallen to human wars or the devastation Azazel had sown. Now the flood threatened to end his kind forever. And yet, he had one advantage no other being possessed.